Okay, there we go. Okay.
Nina,
Yeah.
it sounds like something is muffling your microphone. You're very, very faint compared to the other people.
Oh, hold on. Uh, is this any better?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
much
much
better.
better.
Sorry about that. Great. Thanks for the feedback.
It's pretty rare to call Nina faint.
Who's saying that? Well, I think we should get started. The first thing I had was permission to record. The next thing is, could someone please volunteer to take notes?
Okay, I will volunteer somebody to take notes.
Does that mean you're going to do it, Owen?
Yeah, I'll do it. And
Thank
you should be
you.
able to turn on the AI that does the note taking also.
Oh, all right. AI companion. Tell me, let's see. Always
Yeah.
start. Catch me up was what should I write here for AI companion?
This meeting is being transcribed for AI companion, that's fine.
How do I get to that?
Somebody just turned it on, it looked
Oh,
like.
I opened up AI companion.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Thank you. I
Sometimes
learned something. All right, very good. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? I did add uh, an an item that I put down as number 5, which is talking to our members about Comcast, Xfinity, Verizon, various streaming options. So that's going to be on the agenda. Anything else that you want to talk about? All right, then I think what we'll do is just very quickly go around and introduce ourselves. I think you all know me. So I'm going to call on you in the order that I see you on my screen, which is probably not the same order as you see yourselves. But David, why don't you go first?
Sure. Well, name David Hallerman, and in terms of tech terms, I can look at Apple products and don't know Windows at all or Android.
And that's great because I have 8 MacBook Pros and MacBook Airs from the IT department of the city of Northampton. I'm happy to give them all to you, David.
I
Hmm.
got 2 more.
Did I mention I was software, not hardware?
We used to say in my house that my husband was hardware, I was software, and our son was underwear, but another time.
I,
Um, we'll talk about what needs to be done because you've got a few, Owen, and I'm going to have by tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to have 21 laptops. You've got a couple, people are constantly volunteering, and we need to work that through. Okay, Mari.
Pretty much what David said. I'm a Mac person, software. So I really don't know much about PCs or Androids either.
Okay, Hillary.
Hi, I'm a PC person. I can get around on a Mac, but I wouldn't want to represent myself as, I mean, that's the question I'll get to later is, how fuzzy can you be on questions and still offer yourself up? But yeah, I do PC stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
hardware and software.
Um, I don't know what you mean by hardware, like look,
Put a new hard drive in.
oh no.
Okay.
It's not that much an issue as on Macs as PCs because so much is soldered to the motherboard in most of the Macs that I've dealt with. Whereas the pieces of a PC generally tend to be more easily replaceable. Owen.
I'm Owen. I'll take anything apart once, 50-50 chance of being put back together right. Um, Primarily PCs, no problem doing anything with them of any form. Macs, if you twist my arm, I can probably upgrade an operating system. And that's about it.
Jesse.
I'm Jesse. I've been with the technical team about 3 or 4 years. I deal mostly with PCs. I can do some hardware and some software. But I've been here for a while, and I've done, a lot of setting up computers for new people and stuff like that.
Great. Deborah.
Yeah, I'm mostly PC. Years ago, I was only Mac, but I'm out of that world now. I can do a little bit of hardware. I can do most software.
Seth.
PC, hardware and software.
Excellent. Roger.
CPM, assembler, mainframe.
Mainframe.
Yeah, well,
But I have a
Probably.
Cape Pro.
probably 5 or 10 different mainframes since the 1960s and 70s. But I've really gone from being PC NT type work, servers. I've gotten rid of all proprietary software, and I concentrate on Linux and free solutions for people that want a replacement for whatever the enshittification of software is now that's enforced on us by Microsoft and others. That's me.
And you may have noticed, Roger, that I did put Linux on the agenda.
I noticed that.
Yes. And Cynthia.
Hi, folks. I run Linux at home. Not always successfully, but I love it a lot. I primarily come from a PC background. I think the most valuable contribution I make to the tech team is that I'm very approachable for the users. I'm able to help them decide what it is that they see that's broken, or help them hook up their printers or any other kind of thing.
Okay, I actually want to jump to number 6 on the agenda just very briefly. I think you may have it as number 5. The call managers who take all the requests for all kinds of help, people who want rides, people who want all kinds of volunteers. What they normally do is they choose 3 volunteers and send out the request to the 3, and only go beyond the 3 if all 3 respond no. What I have asked them to do for the tech team is send everyone the request, because the call managers are not that great about asking the right questions and getting enough information so that you, as members of the tech team, can even figure out if you can be of any service. So you may be getting a lot of these requests, and just write no. You don't have to write in a reason. If you can't do it, if it's out of your wheelhouse, if you don't have time, just respond no. And what they do is I don't respond right away, except for people who request me because I've helped them before. If they go more than a week or so without getting any yeses, then I take a look at them. But please, if you get these requests, don't just throw them in the trash. Please respond no if it's a no. And that will help them to know whether there's truly no one out there.
Can we give them like a little questionnaire? So when somebody calls for a tech thing, the first question would be Mac or PC.
Well,
or
we have done that, Hillary.
You have.
I was the only member of the tech team starting in around 2018 until the early years of COVID. And I tried valiantly, and they're just kind of resistant. So if you want to come up and send it to me, if you want to come up with some kind of checklist, they are supposed to ask whether it's a Mac or a PC. They are supposed to ask whether it's an issue with the television or the printer or whatever. And if you don't get that kind of information, it's either because the requester doesn't know or the call manager feels that they're not qualified to make that call. But if you want to send me something, I would love to look at it and send it on to the call managers.
Yeah, maybe the trick is to put the questions in a form that anybody could understand, not just tech people.
Be my guest.
I'll
Write it up,
try.
write it
I'll
up and send it, and I will be delighted to share it with and they would be delighted too. They try so hard, and they often will just privately message me or email me, what should I do with this request? I'm not sure how to handle it.
Right.
That would be great if you would do that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try.
So that leads to the next thing on our list, which is what challenges or problems have you encountered during your visits that you would like to bring to this meeting? And maybe I'll ask you to raise your hand unless, go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, in fact, I asked you about this about an hour ago. I had an interesting thing happen that really surprised me last week. Somebody asked for help because she wasn't able to use her text messaging. And she wanted to be able to keep in touch with her grandchildren. And this was really the only way that she could get a hold of them since they don't answer the phones and don't do email. So I went to her house and she has a MacBook Air and a flip phone. And she was able to send me a message, and occasionally her messages would get through or she would get them, but it was really unreliable. And so I went through all the settings and all of that, and to no avail, talked to Nina, and we both decided the answer was to call Apple, which I did. And maybe some of you already know the answer to this, but it turns out that unless you have cellular service, you can't text message through SMS. Although if you're going Apple to Apple, iMessages work. So that's why some of her Apple to Apple messages get through, but not even all of them. And I tried her again a couple days ago just to see how she was doing. I sent her a text message from my MacBook and she didn't get it. So, and she's 92. She does not want to get a smartphone, even though she knows they're, used, reasonably priced smartphones. It's just more than she wants to take on. So I learned about the limits of texting, and when Apple told me that, I didn't really believe the guy who told me that, and I researched it online, and it's true. So I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, but and there are not many people out there with flip phones anymore, but if they do have them, they're not going to be able to text.
Yeah. And those are the kinds of things that, we're all learning by doing. I barely knew how to open up a MacBook in 2018, and I've had to learn. And, and sharing that kind of information with the team is great. She will live without it.
Right. She'll,
I
she
know her.
communicated with them before. She'll figure out how.
I know her quite
Good.
well, and she will live without it. I find that one of the biggest problems for me is we have a fair number of people who make what seem like very simple requests, but the problem is they are on the edge of dementia. Have any of you run into that? Where you felt, where I have felt, and I make them write it down. I make them do it 2 or 3 times. I let them call me to review it, but it's still tough. And it depends on how much you're really willing to keep yourself open to one of our volunteers. But that's been an issue. And the other thing I do is whenever anyone has an odd issue, I usually just Google it or I look it up on YouTube. Because if someone has an issue, it's very likely that lots of other people have had that. So we just got something in the chat. Can she use email for text? I don't recall the address, but I set up an email to text message for a friend.
It didn't work. We tried that.
Yeah.
It's anything that goes through SMS needs cellular service, if it's an email or a phone or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sheila, anybody else having concerns about something that happened at home or ways of helping or you couldn't help? Anyone?
I had a woman and she just wanted help getting email groups, and she was using Gmail, which I also use. So I had a terrible cold. So I called her and I said, "Can we do this on the phone?" And she was incredibly impatient. Like if something didn't work the way she wanted it to, the way she imagined it would, I felt like she thought I was a complete idiot because I couldn't make this app work the way she thought it was supposed to work. And I tried calling her back, and she just gave up. And I felt really bad about it.
That wasn't Julie, was it?
I don't think her name was Julie. No, I think it was Lisa
Oh,
something.
okay.
I can look, but
What I would suggest in situations like that, and this is how I did tech support during the first couple of years of the pandemic, if they have Zoom, open up a Zoom meeting, invite them to the Zoom meeting, walk them through sharing their screen, and then request control of their computer. Or if it's Microsoft Windows has a built-in program whose name escapes me that also
Quick Assist.
What is it, sir?
Quick Assist.
Quick Assist. I have never used it because I've always done it through Zoom, but you can also look up, as Seth suggests, Quick Assist, and where you could demonstrate to her how to do it and then make her do it 2 or 3 times because it doesn't work. My first question to all new clients is, do you want me to give you fish or teach you how to fish? And, some people just want me to hook up their DVD player or open up their Roku. They don't want to learn, but some people really want to learn. So anyhow, that would be another way of handling that. Have you done that, Seth? Have you used Quick Assist?
Not with any people in here, with Northampton neighbors, no.
But you've done it.
Yeah.
And it works then.
Like any remote desktop, yeah.
Yeah.
the other situation I had that was weird was a woman who wanted help with Excel. And I've actually done a lot of fancy stuff with Excel, so I thought that'd be a good one to say yes to. And what she wanted was basically somebody to program Excel to do, multiple sheets. And I mean, it was like she wanted, 50 hours worth of work, basically. And I felt very awkward saying, this isn't what we do,
You should not feel awkward. That would be my advice to you. This is not what we do. There are plenty of online seminars and instructions and YouTube videos. And if she wants to get into something at that level, she can teach herself, unless there's somebody here who's willing to take that on.
Yeah, I suggested some other apps. I don't remember the details, but there were other ways she could get the information she wanted, but she was not hearing that.
Yeah. Okay. We can't help everybody. We can't. What we can do is try to point them in a direction where they can get help. But I don't think, and we're not here to do basic computer instruction. That's going to be on the agenda in a little bit. But that's not our role. I mean, unless you want to take it on. Anything else that anyone wants to bring up?
I kind of feel that boundary. I have trouble with that boundary of fixing the problem or, there's always more to do.
Yes.
And, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have to restrain, kind of stop, restrain myself from going deeper into things.
I think none of us should feel guilty about saying no. And I think a lot of us were brought up to feel guilty if we said no when someone asked for help. But we are doing so much, but it's okay to say no. If you think it's a problem that someone else on the team can take, let me know or let somebody else know. But do not feel uncomfortable saying no to any of our folks.
Would it help if we made our description of our services a little clearer so that that wouldn't be necessary?
I think the problem, Mary, is that I have constantly upgraded a list of what we do. And we can keep upgrading it, but we're always going to find someone like this lady who wants help with Excel, who, I can send you the last list that I put together. I'm going to make myself a note.
I would like the list in order to do the checklist.
Yeah, I'm send list to all. How about if I send list to all of services we provide? I will send that out after this meeting. The problem is I put this list together in around 2018, 2019, and I've upgraded it, but a lot of what's on the list is stuff like taking their old home movies and digitizing them, because I have the equipment to do that. Most of you probably don't. So you can look at it and say, well, I don't do that or I don't do this, but make sure that something that you can offer is on that list. Okay?
I think another issue is that people often don't know what it is that they need.
Absolutely. They don't have the
You don't
vocabulary.
really know what you're walking into.
They do not have the vocabulary. If they had the vocabulary, they could ask YouTube themselves. But they don't have the vocabulary. And, very often when I am assigned one of these and I call them, I try to get as detailed a description of what the issue is so that I can ask YouTube or Google, how to solve it. But you're absolutely right. And what I often say is computer is a language, and it's a very hard language to learn when you're older, like any language. But there's some of us who've been speaking computer for a while, so we're a little more fluent with the vocabulary. And that's otherwise, how many times have you walked in and the first thing they say to you is, I'm so stupid, or I'm a Luddite, or I can't do that. I hear this all the time, and you're all nodding because we know that. And you just have to reassure people that, some of us are a little more fluent in computer than they are.
I always say you're using the computer. That means you're many steps beyond some people. To sort of give them encouragement that they're not stupid or whatever.
Absolutely. We have people requesting laptops for the laptop exchange program who don't even know what email is. I mean, I find that astounding in this day and age, but it's true. So, you take them where they're at and you give them as much help as you can, but please don't feel guilty and just reassure them that you will help them along. Anything else before we get to the next item on the agenda? Owen.
I had a very interesting occurrence, and somebody had a laptop that they were wanted to know if they go to Windows 11, and it turned out it was older than I was, so the answer was no. And I mean, even with what we do, it wouldn't do it. So while I was there, she said, do you know anything about stereos? And I said, yeah, I'm a guy of the 60s. I know a little bit about stereos. So she said, well, I paid, who was the best Geek Squad, whoever it is, $100 to come look at my turntable. and she handed me what looked like a giant rubber band. And they gave me this, and they said, your turntable doesn't work. Goodbye. Well, that's the band that goes from the motor to the thing. So I said, all right, I'll take it home. They took it home, went online, paid the $10, got the band, new band, put it on, works fine. And I tell you, I mean, she gave me the $10 back, but I've never seen a happier person. But she said, it's been over 6 months since I was able to listen to my records, and now it's done. So I had never done this before. It was like, okay, I'll give it a shot and see what happens. So sometimes you run into things that are a little outside of what's initially requested, but are interesting and, in my case, fun to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, I keep saying to people, I get at least as much out of this as I give. Each one is like trying to solve a puzzle. And if they usually you walk away and they have a smile on their face. By the way, if they offer to pay you, please say to them, please make a donation to Northampton Neighbors if you feel that we've provided a service that is useful to you.
Well, I have to confess that I took 2 cookies from somebody.
All right, we're going to write you up, Owen. Okay. Mary wanted me to put on this, and I think this is a really good one, is issues with Xfinity or Comcast or Verizon. And I want to start by saying that I gave a talk a few months ago that is on the Northampton Neighbors YouTube channel about lowering your cable bill. And I look back at that now, and I would love to re-edit the whole thing, because Gateway Fiber has come in, T-Mobile with 5G has come in, Verizon is offering Fios, and now, of course, Comcast is freaking out because everyone's ditching their cable bill, and they're offering $40 a month or $35 a month Wi-Fi. I think as we go through this, people are going to want our help ditching Comcast. I mean, I've done stuff like called Comcast and talked them down from a $235 bill to a $60 bill. I've also helped people transition to Gateway and disconnected everything and said, take this to UPS. Have any of you dealt with this, and do you feel comfortable taking this on?
We actually switched from Comcast to Gateway, so I have my own personal experience. The part about it I loved is when Comcast called and said, we can give you this way, way lower bill, after we said we were leaving them. And Jim, my husband, said, yeah, you've been milking us for years, therefore we're leaving you. But it seems like there'd be a hell of a lot of decisions to make. I didn't even realize all that stuff you listed was available.
Well, not everywhere, and Gateway isn't available everywhere. When I gave the talk, it was just for the Florence Leeds neighborhood circle, and they were just putting out Gateway in my neighborhood. It's not in every neighborhood, and when I checked, 5G was not available in my neighborhood, and neither was Verizon Fios, but they're all moving in. The thing about Comcast is they can keep most of their, they can keep their modem and stuff like that, and they're really sweetening the deal with, and if you switch from AT&T or whatever and let us put an eSIM, a Comcast eSIM on your phone, then we'll only charge you $20 a month. And they're really desperate, but we have clients who don't have a lot of money, and so I don't think we can in all good faith say, ugh, I hate Comcast, I'm going to send you over to Gateway if they get a better deal with Gateway. And by the way, when you call Comcast, twice you have to say, I don't want you to send me a text message. And the third time when they ask why, say, I want to cancel my service. it is the quickest way to get a live human being as soon as they hear that you want to cancel.
Right.
There was my neighbor got Gateway and they blew away her phone number. And I don't know why, but you know, she'd had that phone number for decades and then she had to change it. And I don't know how that happened. And the same guy who put our service in, who was really knowledgeable and really nice, was the one who did her Gateway. And I don't know how to, you know, if you suggest Gateway to somebody, are you going to blow away their phone number?
Why was their phone number even involved? It's just Wi-Fi.
I have no.
If they have a landline or what people call a landline, it's that they were getting something like triple play from Comcast and they had a modem that had a phone jack input, and they were plugging their phone in, and there's a whole protocol for transferring your phone from Comcast to Gateway. There is a protocol. I have helped people do it. I don't know what happened to your friend.
I had a successful transition from Xfinity to Gateway, but I think because of what Cynthia was just saying, or no, Hillary, sorry, that should give us pause helping people, because there are a lot of decisions and complications with doing that. And you can always call Gateway to see if they're in your area. I mean, I'm in Northampton and they're in most parts of Northampton as far as I know.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy with them. And, you know, you call them and somebody answers the phone right away. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's because they don't have too many customers.
No, I think they really, I mean, that's what they're all about. I think it's very important to them to have personal service. So
on the other hand, we'll see what happens if Owen is correct. Then after they grow out their business, do they still have, they also have customer service from the United States, which for a lot of our clients who have trouble understanding people with foreign accents, that is a plus for them. The other big problem that I have run into is you really have to spend time saying, do you watch TV? What channels do you watch? Because if they're going strictly to Wi-Fi, you're going to have to give them advice. Should they get Sling? Should they get YouTube TV or Hulu Plus? Or how are they going to get the channels that they want to watch? And if people like sports, they have to pay extra for sports. There's a lot of decision making. Whereas it's so much easier just to pay over $200 to Comcast and you got all those channels. So it's not that easy.
I feel that's a boundary issue for us. That's taking on something that is beyond what we're really offering. I mean, because it's more than technical. I mean, it's getting into people's habits or possible usages. I think that's up to the companies to talk to them about.
I agree it's a boundary issue only because I feel like I need a master's degree in this I mean, I wouldn't be able to lead somebody through this. I would need a ton of education. But maybe you, Nina, are able to do it, but.
Well, I was thinking that I did a Northampton Neighbors online thing with Chris Allard about how to avoid scams. And I was thinking that I might do another one for the membership about how to make decisions if you're going strictly to streaming. Does anyone else feel comfortable joining me and talking about that issue? If we did a, not like the speaker series where anybody who's interested could log on and we could discuss the issues. I've looked at this a lot, so I feel pretty comfortable. Especially since you cannot get local channels. Most people cannot get their local channels with an antenna. You can get maybe CBS, maybe PBS, occasionally ABC, NBC, forget it. They're only broadcasting ATC3, and if you don't have that on your TV or a converter, you're not going to get it. So there are all kinds of issues, but does anyone else here want to join? I'm happy to lead the discussion for the.
Yeah, I would.
Jesse, you would. Great. All right. Why don't I pitch that to the events committee? and see if they'll set up something where we can go online and people can bring us their questions and we can talk about their issues.
Well, what exactly are you proposing here?
I'm proposing that we have a Zoom meeting for the entire membership, and anyone who's interested in what do I do if I dump my cable package? How do I get TV? What are my choices? That's essentially the issue, unless somebody else has another thought about.
So it's about TV,
I think
it's
that
not
might be-
about Wi-Fi then. You're not talking about gateway fiber, you're talking about cable.
I'm talking about if you go strictly to Wi-Fi, whether you dump your cable package and get your Wi-Fi from Comcast or Gateway or Verizon or T-Mobile, wherever you're getting your just Wi-Fi, if you want TV that's not just streaming. Now, if you want to just watch Max or Hulu or Netflix, you don't need us. But if you want television, what your choices are. Cynthia, you have your hand up.
I do. I think that both I'm hearing two different conversations. And the first one would be a presentation, basically, I'm not happy with my cable bundle. What are my options? I've heard about Gateway. What is this all about? And that would be more of a presentation style offering. And then the other one is exactly what you're saying. How do I break down what it is that I want? And, how do I still get that? What's possible, what's not possible?
Yeah. The presentation I've already done. If you go
on the Gateway? Okay.
If you go to the Northampton Neighbors YouTube channel, you will find a presentation I did, I think in February or March, how to lower your Comcast bill, I think it's called.
Okay, thank you.
You might want to take a look at that. And the only thing I'm truly embarrassed about is I talked about Wi-Fi speeds in terms of megabytes up and down, and I should have said megabits. So I would love to re-edit that, but I can't. So that was already, if you want to dump, people are paying $230 and they don't watch TV, or
I know.
You all know this. We were all somewhat guilty of this. And my goal is to, Mary, I'll get it right. Mary, is this what you wanted to talk about when you asked me?
Pretty much. Well, it's also people that have issues as a consumer with Verizon or Xfinity or Comcast, and that's not a technical thing.
It would depend on what the issues are. I don't know if we can help them or not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that's another boundary issue.
Yeah.
It seems like some of the issues are financial issues, not tech issues.
But I think it's within our wheelhouse, and that was one of the reasons that I did that presentation back in February or March, to save people money, especially since we do outreach to the housing authority people. We do outreach to a lot of people who are paying these enormous bills and don't even know what they're paying for. Oh, you're paying for gigaspeed internet and 235 channels when all they do is email and watch YouTube videos. They don't need that, but they don't even understand their bill. And
I think it's really important to let them know. I'm not arguing with that. I think that's really important to let people know.
And that was what my talk was about back in February. But I think now maybe we should have maybe a few sessions where people can just log on and ask their individual questions. I don't know. Let me pitch, Jesse, I think I'm going to pitch you and me to the events committee and see what they think.
Okay.
It almost seems like we could have a booklet that would have the pros and cons of a bunch of stuff. Like there's Roku and Apple, all of the different ways you can get streaming. And, I think for any one of us to know all the details of all that stuff is almost impossible.
If you want to write it,
I don't have the expertise to write it.
yeah, there's plenty of YouTube videos about, Google Chromecast versus Apple TV versus Amazon Fire Stick versus Roku versus your smart TV's own interface. You can find plenty of people discussing that. There's a very good website called Cord Cutter News, which I read every day for people who have cut the cord. And where they talk about all these issues. I happen to be a Roku fan, but I've been using Roku for years. I think it has the simplest interface, even if you have a smart TV, but I'm prejudiced. Anything else about this? Anything else that you think we should be offering to our members that we do not currently offer?
The only thing that it seems to crop up a lot is people being ripped off. And if we could somehow get the information of what not to do, and update it and keep it in front of them somehow. One of this really nice woman I worked with through and was ripped off for $15,000. She's in her 90s. It's heartbreaking to see that, and it bugs me that we can't protect people more.
In what tech context was she ripped off by that amount?
She got a pop-up. I didn't deal with that. Somebody else dealt with that, but she got a pop-up that said,
Got it. Since we were talking about the providers, it was a rip-off from a provider.
Yeah, every once in a while, we did do a talk with Chris Allard, which you can find on the YouTube channel. Chris is the lead guy at Northampton Computers, and we did some simulations about how to avoid scams. You could send those to people, but generally it's after people have been ripped off that they call. And I don't know how we can help people from not clicking on links that they shouldn't click on. But take a look at that presentation as well. I think that was sometime in March or April that Chris and I did that.
Yeah, that was one of the best presentations. I've had a lot of people mention that as something they really enjoyed. But the issue is getting people to actually watch it. And that's the point, is that a lot of our clients do not explore. They won't go elsewhere.
Yeah. And I don't think we can protect them all. We can only do what we can do. I could certainly do things like send a note to the listserv, take a look at this if you worry about scams. But how many of our clients read the listserv? Or just look at it and their eyes glaze over. We can't help everybody. We can do our absolute best. But, when I did that thing with Chris Allard, I had a video I recorded of a member who was this close to giving thousands of dollars in a real estate scam until she realized, and she talked about how that happened. We can't protect everybody. I wish we could. Well, why don't we move on to the laptop exchange program? I want to start by saying I currently have, or I will have after tomorrow, 21 laptops in my bedroom. And they're all in different versions of, this one needs a hard drive, this one needs a charger, this one has 4 gigs of RAM, really should have 8 gigs of RAM. What operating system are we going to put on? Are we going to continue our practice of upgrading to Windows 11 on unsupported hardware. Are we going to continue our practice of upgrading MacBooks on unsupported hardware? Roger, I know, is a big fan of Linux as a solution for the older, slower computers. And also, was it you, Roger, or someone else at our last get together at the community center, the community room, who was really into turning the older ones into Chromebooks? And I wanted to hear what your thoughts were about how much work we should put into these laptops, which ones are beyond repair, and then how many of you would be willing to meet in person to help evaluate and rebuild these laptops. We had a mass laptop giveaway at Salvo House in December, and it got a lot of publicity. It was in the paper. It's the reason that the sheriff now gives us all the old laptops from the jail. The IT department and Northampton, the city of Northampton, gives us all their old MacBooks. But, they come with challenges because they're old. So these are the kind of issues that I was hoping we could talk about. Maybe the first thing is Microsoft keeps finding ways of preventing us from getting around the hardware requirements and upgrading Windows 10 laptops to Windows 11. Should we keep using the ways that still work? Will our clients be safe? I don't know that anyone has any answers, but I wondered what you think. Deborah.
Yeah, so I have an upgraded computer that was not capable of Windows 11, and it's probably 7 times now I've turned on my computer to have it unable to be turned on, and but I because I'm a techie, I fooled with it, and I always put in a restore point and go back. So pretty much every time that Windows, or every other time Windows upgrades its software, it makes it so that I cannot use the computer. And I have to go in and, press F2 and all that, and go work through a menu and get to a place where I can do a restore point, but only if I've done a restore point within the last few months, because it seems to get rid of old restore points. So that if I wasn't a techie, I would not be using that computer. It would be impossible. And I'm wondering how many people that's happening to, and how much will that happen in the future. I do know that one of the reasons that people keep saying that we should be able to upgrade to Windows 11 is because Microsoft will no longer support the virus protection, the safety of it. But for myself, I spend $100 a year and am able to put Bitdefender on 5 computers. And I don't know if you remember, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there was a worldwide ransomware event where huge systems and individual computers were really attacked. And the only computers that were not, the only bunch of computers that were untouched were those who had Bitdefender on it. So if the issue is security, and that's why we need Windows 11, I would say stay with Windows 10 and find a way to, put a good security program on it. Windows 11 seems to have, I haven't talked to other people who have had that happen. I think it might be nice to go back and see how people are doing that are on Windows 11.
Well, one of the problems is I don't think we have kept track of which computers we have upgraded to Windows 11 where the the hardware met the requirements.
Yeah.
Like all those computers we gave out at Salvo House, they beyond met the requirements. They had Core i7 processors, TPM 2.0.
Those are great computers. Those are great.
The ones from Salvo House?
Yeah, those are
Yeah, and
nice.
that's the Dennis Group, and they're going to give us their quote unquote old computers every year. They loaded my trunk with 51 laptops, but a lot of them had bad motherboards and sticky keyboards, and I spent a week cannibalizing the bad ones and upgrading the good ones. And the ones we gave out with Windows 11 at Salvo House, basically, we did not have to force. We didn't have to do the bypass, the out-of-box experience or anything like that, or set them up as Windows Server or all the other fixes. We didn't have to do that because those met the requirements. But these ones that I'm getting from the Sheriff, for instance, some of them have Core i3 processors. Those, no, we're not going to bother with those. Some of them have Core i5s and Core i7s, and we could still force Windows 11 on them. Oh, Cynthia says she wants to work on laptop rehab. Good. I'll send out a doodle poll because I'm going to get you all over here to my house. Some of you have been here before, or we can do it in the community room at the Potpourri Mall. Oh, and Cynthia's going to bring snacks. I'll definitely come. And you'll bring your tools and we'll look at the specs on all these computers and we can jointly make decisions. I also have a box full of DDR3, DDR4, and DDR5 RAM. I've got maybe 50 or 60 M.2 solid state drives. I've got all kinds of stuff. Owen was kind enough to buy us or to get for us 256 SATA SSDs. We've got the stuff we need. We may need a few chargers, but we've got to make some decisions based on less than perfect information about what we're going to do with the ones that don't qualify. Are we going to drop them off in the shopping cart at Staples? Are we going to say, here's a laptop for $30, Microsoft will support it for another year? The things I've read are that they're going to continue to update Windows Defender, which is their built-in antivirus, even if you have Windows 10. Roger, you have your hand up?
Oh, yeah, I guess I do.
Okay.
All of these questions go away if you can convince clients that are basically using their laptops for mail and web browsing to switch over to Linux. They all go away.
Or to turn them into Chromebooks.
Well, Chromebooks is based on Linux. The underlying software is basically a variety of Linux. So, yes.
The issue that I have found, and then Hillary, I see you want to say something. Let me just, if I don't say things when I think of them, then they disappear from my brain very quickly. The issue is after we drop off these laptops, who are our clients depending on? And they're usually depending on their niece or their grandchild who doesn't have a whole lot of patience with grandma, but knows how to use Windows or Mac and may not know how to use Chromebook or Linux. And that's what I worry about, that when it comes to continued software support, that could be an issue. And anyhow, I'm going to call on who had their hand up? Yeah, Hillary and then Cynthia. Okay.
I'm just curious about Linux. I actually was on the kernel team of writing Unix operating systems for Data General. So I used Unix a lot for several years, and I can't, what does it look like now? It has an interface that it can't be like Unix was back in the 80s and 90s.
No.
And can I suggest maybe a topic that we could bring to a larger group is a presentation of Linux and how the desktop of Linux can look almost exactly like Windows 7 or Windows 10. It doesn't try to mirror Mac OS, but it is very close to what most people will be familiar with.
I would say I would agree with that.
I need to step out of the meeting for 1 minute, but this is all being recorded.
Okay. I would love to be able to use some of those smaller hardware laptops and have them run Linux because I agree. I think the desktop looks similar. OpenOffice works great. Thunderbird Mail is fine. You know, they've got plenty of things that our Northampton neighbor fellows like to use. So that's my 2 cents. Free advice and worth it.
No license costs.
These are all excellent points. Whether we can get our clients to feel comfortable with it is another issue. And it would mean that those of you who are comfortable with Linux or with Chrome or whatever, are you willing to take that on and give more tech help to people who want a computer? And we've got an old laptop with a Core i3 processor and 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM and no TPM.
I'll volunteer.
Okay, Roger, I'm going to also pitch to the events committee that you do an online presentation with a Q&A about Linux.
I would
And
love that.
those of you who else is comfortable enough with Linux to do that with Roger? We have Bill.
I can be a graceful assistant.
Okay, and I'm going to say Cynthia will assist.
How many laptops do you need per year?
We don't know. Right now, we are sending out questionnaires to all the residents at Forsander. And 10 people have already told the guy who's head of the Tenants Association there that they want laptops. But we will probably have more once the word gets out. We're hoping to do the giving away of the laptops sometime in July. That means we've got to get together and get these laptops into shape. And we don't know what their level of knowledge is. I mean, some of them may say, great, I use it all the time at the library. I just need my own. Others may say, what's email? One of the things I'm doing at Forsander with the questionnaire is asking people who say they're comfortable with computers, would you be willing to be like a buddy and take on someone else at Forsander to be their tech support? Because we can't do that. I know that we can't do that. Owen.
Okay, a couple of things. If you do give off a whole bunch of machines to Forsander and some of them happen to be Linux, my guess is nobody there who's going to be able to help them. So I don't think that's going to work. If you do some Chromebooks, then you get a whole bunch of kids who could help because everybody's grandchild who's gone to school has had a Chromebook at some point and they have a sense on that. And don't get me, I'm not anti-Linux, Roger. I'm looking at the support piece of it. And yeah, I've done stuff way back, you want to talk autocoder, we can go way back. And hand coding stuff that's Unix based. So, Chromebooks, I think you get some support and you can do a lot of things that are very similar. The Linux, I think we have to have a program in place that either localizes them or make sure that there's an place support for it. I'm not going to take a Linux call. Okay. I'm, not, I probably haven't used anything like that for quite a long time. I've had to learn Mac again. I'm doing this stuff from 10 to 11. I believe that, the slower books, yeah, they can be Chromebooks or Linux. That's fine as long as we have a program to put the Linux someplace where they can be supported. I think the Chromebooks at this point are easier to support. I think there's some computers you just can't go to 11 on, or even they're too old to even bother to put anything else on, and then become digital doorstops, at that point. And I think stuff that's very close. I'm looking at one right now. It's got everything on it except the i7 processor is a 7 series instead of an 8 series. I said, I'm going to stick the 11 on here and it'll be fine because it meets every other criteria. And, Microsoft arbitrarily said, oh, 7 and 8, we're going to draw a line. There's no reason for that to not to work just fine. So my 2 cents is each laptop gets evaluated separately, maybe goes into 4 different piles, depending on what we want to do with it. Once we have them in whatever pile, we then decide where they should go based on what makes sense for the people receiving them. So that's my 2 cents worth.
And the questionnaire that is going out, that's going to be on the door handle of every apartment at Forsander is stuff like, how comfortable are you with Windows? How comfortable are you with Mac? Do you feel comfortable using a computer? Would you be willing to partner with someone who's not that comfortable? I think Roger and Cynthia, if you want to take on Linux, you're going to have to also take on some additional support for the people who get those computers. And that would be fabulous. I mean, the last time I looked at Linux, it kind of looked like Windows. It had an interface that was very similar to Windows, but I've never used it. So I would not feel comfortable, being the tech support. Whereas a Chromebook, yeah, I do a lot in my Chrome browser. And I have a Gmail account and I use Google Drive and all that stuff. So I'm a little more comfortable with that. But what we should do, Roger and Cynthia, is see if we can put together something through the events committee, see who's interested, but only if you're willing to deal with it at the other end. Cynthia.
The thing I would say
So.
is that it depends on the group's willingness to try something, but maybe it would make sense for Roger to demonstrate the look and feel of Linux to our tech support team, and see if there is some overlap that would be comfortable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to me it does, because I hear opinions from people that are conflating Unix from probably the PDP 11 days to Sparks to almost everything else. The modern desktop on Linux and the modern desktop on Unix varieties is extraordinarily similar to the desktop on Windows.
Yeah.
And every time Microsoft changes Windows from XP to 8 to Vista to 10 to whatever it wants to, every user out there is confused by where sorry, I was about to use a bad word. Where do I find the start button? How do I do this? How do I do that?
Right.
And so, trying to say that Windows is the cure for all the ailments, and we ought to stick with it, even if it means buying new licenses for Microsoft Office every year. Nah. But what I would like to say, yes, I would love to put a presentation together of 2 or 3 of the Linux desktops and their capabilities and what they run on, and present internally to the tech group. And then people here can decide whether it's worth a
Right.
further go.
Okay, how about, do you want to put out a doodle poll to see what would be the best time to do that and set that up? I would happily come to that. I would find that fascinating.
Sure, and I'll do that. Yes.
Okay, and you can just, just click reply all to the last thing I sent out. Oh, no,
while
I started when I sent out the link, Roger, I did put you all in blind carbon copies. So maybe send me the doodle poll and I'll send it out in blind carbon copies.
You
And
know, our names are all out there now, so it doesn't matter.
I apologize. When I send out 600 emails for the Florence Leeds neighborhood circle meetings, those all go into BCCs, and I forgot to do that for this, for which I apologize.
Thank you, Nina.
Okay, so Roger, we're going to hear from you about a presentation for just the tech team, and then
Yep.
maybe a presentation for the full membership. Jesse and I are going to I'm going to pitch a full presentation about, I've only got Wi-Fi, how do I get TV? And I'm going to send you all a list as of a year or two ago of all the services that we provide. I am also going to send out a doodle poll for those of you. I know there are a few people who have come to hands-on things before where they brought their tools and we took the bottoms off of laptops and evaluated them and added RAM and, did all that stuff, put in new hard drives. I will send out a doodle poll for that to see when we can all get together with my pile of soon to be 21, and Owen's got some, and maybe the rest of you have some, and we'll just go through them and figure out what the best way is to deal with each laptop. Okay. And then I would also, at some point, when we determine the date of the group giveaway at Forsander, which is right in downtown North Florence, right behind Miss Flo's Diner on High Street. How many of you can come once we've set them up for individuals, who can come and help people? Who was at the Salvo house?
I was Jesse.
Jesse, you were, and Deborah. Is Deborah still? You were there, weren't you?
Yeah.
Was anybody else in this group at the Force? It was really fun.
Yeah.
It was great. And the big thing is, whether this is a plus or a minus, I don't know, but they're going to try to get press coverage. Plus the sheriff wants to come because he's given us so many laptops. Plus IT from the city wants to come because they want to kind of get their thing. So it's going to be hopefully a big public event. But in the
Is there a common room? Is there a common room at Forsander
Yes.
or something?
Yes, they
Okay.
have a community room and it has Wi-Fi. Unlike that stupid place at Salvo that didn't even have Wi-Fi. No, the community room, Deborah, I'm correct in saying that they can all log on to the Wi-Fi in the community room at Forsander, right? Okay, so that's going to be hopefully sometime in mid-July. We're looking at what, the 15th or the 16th? Were those the two dates that got put out? I think those were the dates we were playing with.
Yeah.
But that means that we're going to have to get together and do this in person, evaluate each laptop and figure out what it needs before then. And I will send out a doodle for that. Okay. Anything, go ahead, Owen.
I think some of you know that I do the same stuff as you guys do at the senior center, dealing with a similar crowd of people and similar problems, except they bring their stuff to me. I don't have to go to their place. And I've now talked to the powers that be, and I'm going to try and schedule a once a month lunch with a guru after my regular hours to do a very short presentation on something, followed by a general Q&A. And some of these topics that we've talked about here would fit in that, but one that we haven't talked about, and which is near and dear to my heart, is how to buy a new PC. What to look for, how to read the ads, how to understand what people are offering, how much of the stuff is putting lipstick on a pig. I mean, it's just amazing the feces that's out there that people are trying to get rid of. People selling. I'm not talking individuals. I'm talking businesses. So, for instance, that's an idea for one of the things. There's a lot of people who, they have the 8-9-year-old computers, laptops, and they say, maybe it's time. What's it going to cost me? What should I look for? How should I do it? So that's just an example of what there. So I don't know if we would want to add anything like that to our long litany of tech support type stuff in an information way, as opposed to one-on-one when you've come to somebody's apartment and you see there's a computer with a crank on it that you have to turn to start it, and then decide that really you can't do DOS anymore. So anyhow, just a thought.
My first computer ran CP/M. It was just fine. Little green letters on a black screen. So. Yeah, and you would have a 3-page document, and you say do a spell check. You'd go make yourself a cup of coffee, and by the time your coffee was done, it had spell checked your document. So I still remember those days. Here's what I'm hearing. I am going to pitch to the events committee that there be a monthly Zoom presentation from the tech team. I now have at least 3 topics. One of them is how to get TV if all you have is Wi-Fi. One of them is the advantages of Linux. And one of them is how to buy a new computer. And is there anybody else who'd like to put another? I mean, I think 3 is a good place to start. And I think this will be marvelously helpful for our membership.
Just one overall question. With a lot of there's nothing maybe to do about it, but a lot of the people who might need the help are never going to go onto a Zoom meeting. And if I heard Linux, I would just blank out anyway. And it's still a great idea. It has its limits. That's all.
And I mean, this is a big problem at Northampton Neighbors altogether, because we have members who don't have email, who don't have Wi-Fi, and how to get the word out to them about anything. I mean, there's a budget item for sending snail mail to get the word out about certain things, because we have members who, for one reason or another, as not that they're afraid of Linux, they don't even have email. So how are they going to know about it? And I don't know that I have a solution to that, David.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, we've got.
You need a town crier.
Okay, you're volunteering, Jesse?
No.
Yeah,
Right.
See, that's the problem. Okay. Anything else? This has been, at least from my point of view, this has been amazingly helpful. And please remember to say no if you get those emails. Don't just toss them. Say no. And don't feel guilty if you say no about anything, not just tech-wise, but in life. We're all too old to feel guilty about that crap. Anything else that anyone would like to bring up before I call this meeting to a close? Thank you all for coming and for being such a valuable part of Northampton Neighbors. This has been great.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you, Nina.
My pleasure. Bye, everybody.
Bye.